All right, I got a brand new deck study for you. This is going to be a good one. I'm going to keep it short. I know I've said that in the past, but there's not a whole lot of backstory in this deck, so it won't be as long as some of the other ones. Not to say the deck is not as good as some of the other ones. There's just not a lot of backstory to it. But this is a very beautiful deck. It is the Antler playing cards, the brand new deck from Dan and Dave. Came out a couple weeks ago, and in two versions. This is the signature, or not signature, special edition version. There was a regular version and a special edition version. They came in hunter green and a maroon. In both versions, they're slightly different. I'll show you a few of the examples when we get later on into the study. But this is, Dan and Dave have come out with several decks, in the past couple years, but this is their first signature release, signature deck since they dissolved the Smoke and Mirrors brand. They've obviously done work with other designers and other folks through their playing card company, but this is their first signature deck since the Smoke and Mirrors, so it was a little bit more special of a release. So really cool. Let's get into it. The box is very decorative. And again, the Antlers, it's kind of, it's kind of that hunter kind of feel, frontiersy look to it. You can see obviously the buck right there on the front from the buck twins. So there's kind of a correlation there. Dan and Dave Buck putting out the buck on the front of the cover. So there are the Antler playing cards there, very decorative. You've got all that ornamentation around the front. It is slightly embossed, not a whole lot, but there is definitely some embossing there as well. The side of the box, Dan and Dave approved. The bottom, which is kind of a cool feature, you got a little mountaintop UPC code there. With Dan and Dave, with their website information and all that good stuff there. Other side says Gentlemen Playing Cards, and on the top you can't see it, but it says designed by Tom Lane, who is a deck designer and artist. Now the special edition version comes with the Dan and Dave stamp seal with the Dan and Dave logo on it. From what I've been told, the regular edition does not have a seal on it, kind of like the Smoke and Mirrors decks didn't have seals on them either. But you can kind of see the mirrored image of the deer as the back design with buck twins on both sides. But we'll get into that when we take a look at the deck. So there's your box in a nutshell. Again, this is the hunter green version, and there is a red version of the deck as well. It's in a darker kind of maroon kind of look to it. So there's that. The flap does have a made in the USA graphic on there. The box is plain old box, nothing going on really in the middle, or in the inside box is plain white. So good job on the box. I like it a lot. Not over the top, just enough to get the theme of the deck, which is again kind of that outdoorsy feel. So very good job as far as the artistry goes on the box. Thumbs big up for that. So let's look. So here's the deck in a nutshell. And again, this is the special edition back design, which it varies slightly from the regular version. So let's take a look at this, and then we'll show you the other one. So again, you've got the buck twins there on the top with the kind of forest in the background, the ornamentation kind of going around here with kind of that maroon look on it there. So there you can see that right there, pretty cool. I like the back design. Another slight feature is kind of on the border, how some of the ornamentation breaks the border there. The antlers break the border on the top. You can see that right there as well. So there's that kind of, gives it a little bit of a different kind of feel. So the bud breaks the border a little bit. So there's that. And here's your first extra card. Now this is the back design that you get with the standard version of the deck. It just comes without that kind of color, that brownish color in the back. It's just green and white on the standard, or red and white if you were to get the red version. The red version of this card is just flip the colors. You got the red in the back with the green kind of rimmed around the circle instead. So flip the colors for the red version here, and this is just red and white instead of green and white on there. But it's the exact same image, same everything. It's just plain green and white. So I liked this version better. I like the extra color in there better than the standard version, so I opted for the limited edition version for myself. Again, personal preference, but I think this looks a lot better. So there's that first card. You also get a blank. And the jokers aren't really jokers, I guess. They don't say Joker on them. You get a green and a red version of the Antler Buck. So these are your two Buck cards, we'll call them. You've got that ornamentation. You've got the really cool A with the antler. You got your playing cards. You've got your design by Tom Lane on the bottom, Dan and Dave approved. And you've got a green version and the red version. So really cool kind of bonus there. Nothing that they don't say Joker on them. Again, you just got Buck and Buck on the bottom as well. So there's those. The Ace of Spades is really cool. You guys are going to like this a lot. Obviously, it's my favorite card in the pack, but they really did a real nice job on it. Look at that. You've got the trophy head of the Buck, kind of the ones you'd put over your fireplace, and then the ornamentation going around it in the shape of a spade is just spectacular. Just the use of the space. The negative space in there is amazing. I love this ace. It's one of my favorites I've seen in quite a long time, actually. And you can see it just how the antlers just kind of drape right into the ornamentation, kind of like it gives you a little bit kind of like a chandelier type feel. So really nice job there. Very cool Ace of Spades. Very cool, very cool. So there's that. The cards themselves, they vary a little bit from the Smoke and Mirrors if you're used to that from Dan and Dave. So let's take a look at that. But it's a fairly standard deck. And I'll show you the differences here in a minute. Now the only thing that's going to stand out right away for you guys, the red color, it's very dark. It's very similar to the King's Maroon. But as you can see, the black cards are obviously the same. Now, the one thing they did do with this deck, if you're familiar with the Smoke and Mirrors, the images were scrunched. These are stretched. The borders, there's less white space around the outside of the card, so the pictures are stretched to the edges. So the images are a lot bigger, and it's a much finer outline. So let's give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let me grab the Smoke and Mirrors card here. If I can find the Jack of Spades, which would be helpful. Which I'm probably not going to find right off the top of my head. Aha, the last one. So you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So there's your two Jack of Spades. Obviously the Jack is the same, much more ornamentation and decoration on the robes. Excuse me, but here's what I'm talking about as far as look at the thickness of the border and look at the difference in the spacing. There's a lot more white around the outsides of the Smoke and Mirrors card than this one. This one looks more, has that wider border like you'd see in some of the B decks. I have that we've seen here lately. They have that very wide kind of look to them. So again, there's your kind of card-to-card comparison of the Smoke and Mirrors and the new Antlers. So that's your biggest difference, and you can definitely tell. They put a lot more decoration into the face cards, and they've got an earlier version of some of the faces on these as well, which is really cool. So here's your red, and again, it's the Smoke and Mirrors red was very dark. This is a very dark maroon. I mean, like I said, at almost every deck we're looking at now, that the trend is to go a little darker with the red. But this is very dark. Let me give you another example of a card from the Smoke and Mirrors. We'll get the 6 side by side here so you can see. I mean, it's definitely a shade darker than even the Smoke and Mirrors, which had, even years ago, have a darker red. So the trend is still going darker. So you saw the success the Kings deck had. You know, I wasn't a big fan of the real dark red, because I didn't see a whole lot of contrast between the cards when you spread them out. But it's actually grown on me. I like the Kings deck a lot more than I used to when I first got it. But again, you can see with these enlarged images, the much more detail in the cards themselves, which I like a lot. The Smoke and Mirrors were more plain. I mean, even the Joker we just saw. But let's look at some of the Kings from the Smoke and Mirrors deck. You can see there's just not as much detail in them. You can see those right there as compared to, you know, the ones we just saw. I mean, look at the detail. We'll do a side by side of the 2 Kings. Much more ornamentation, much more decoration, much more artistry in this deck than the old Smoke and Mirrors. Not to put the Smoke and Mirrors deck down. That's one of my favorite decks of all time. But a little bit more attention to detail as far as the details in the faces and the robes. So the only other real big thing, the hearts, again, they're enlarged. The heart's enlarged and stretched as far as a heart you'd see on a normal deck. So let's look at the 2 side by side here, and you'll get an idea of what I mean. Look how much longer the heart is. It's kind of pressed in and stretched a little bit, so it's not as fat. And again, you can see the color difference there as well. So really good job on the subtle changes they made. You know, again, not a huge crazy fan of the dark on dark. It's been growing on me. Thinner borders, much more decoration on the faces in comparison to their famous Smoke and Mirrors deck, which obviously is, you know, one of the standard bearers in decks of cards, the Smoke and Mirrors deck. So you know, obviously, I don't really need to talk about the handling, I don't think. It's a Dan and Dave deck. It's absolutely fantastic. U.S. playing card company, air cushion finish. I mean, it's going to handle and do whatever you want it to do. You can obviously perform with this with the standard faces. So this deck's it's really good. I like it a lot. You know, it doesn't really jump out as far as anything super crazy, but it's just a nice deck you could use at any time. It's not my favorite of the year so far, but that doesn't mean I'm going to mark it down by any means. And again, I like the special edition back much more than the regular. That added color really makes it pop when you see it from the back. So definitely a must-have. I mean, any Dan and Dave deck, I'm going to tell you to go out and get. But if this is going to be their signature line, this is going to be the first one in a line of these, possibly. You're definitely going to want to get your hands on it. You know, plus you could use it for pretty much anything you need. These are available at Dan and Dave right now, dananddave.com. They're also available on Art of Play. So there you go. The Buck Twins Antler playing cards. Thumbs up all around. I mean, there's nothing that pops that's really amazing except the Ace of Spades, but there's nothing that's going to catch my eye as far as a downfall for the deck. I mean, everything is just solid across the board with a very spectacular Ace of Spades. Well, there's your recap. So let me know what you think. If you guys like it, let me know. If you don't, let me know. And we'll see you out there. All right.